Y'all already know what it is. It's the Backstage Brawl. I'm your host, as always, the Golden Child, here with the People's Champ, here with the Diamond Cutter, here with Mean Gene, and here with Kid Dynamite. So much news has happened over the course of this past week, carrying over from last week. We got the COVID concerns. We have potential free agents all, basically jumping ship. And I feel like it's a good time to basically get started with it. Whatchamacallit, Tessa Blanchard, almost immediately after, release of last week's podcast, was fired, or should we say let go from TNA Impact, the reigning, defending TNA Impact World Champion. And now she's lobbying in between different territories, between WWE, potentially AEW, perhaps going back with her father. With Slammiversary on the mend, with Tessa Blanchard as basically a former champion, what's going on in the wrestling world? What's the cause of all this? Mean Gene, make some sense out of this, brother.
Okay, so with the Tessa Blanchard stuff, she got released from it, but Impact just said, we're not doing this anymore with you, because I heard she didn't want to send promo packages to them. And honestly, she was going to be gone for a while, so I get why they cut her. Now, my thing is that what I'm hearing is that a bunch of their companies, like WWE, I'm going to talk on the WWE part. WWE apparently is interested in her. Now, my thoughts on this at the beginning. Yesterday, I was like in total rejection of this shit. I said, no, this woman is too much trouble to have around with all the stuff that she's been doing. I'm like, no, this ain't where I don't want her. But then I was reading some stuff, and I was reading an interview from Booker T. And he talked about the Tessa Blanchard stuff. And I was like, you know what? This kind of opening my eyes right now, because I was looking at it from a personal standpoint of why I didn't want to hear. But then I got to look at it from a more of a financial standpoint. I'm just like, you know what? Vince, if you want to consider getting this woman, I'm all for it, man. I would not mind seeing her here, because this woman, there's a major amount of clout in her, because the fact that she's able to build her legacy, her career on her own, because she was in WWE, but then she left. But I don't know if they cut her, I think they probably cut her. And then she went to do her own thing, and she drew quite a buzz for herself, how she became the first female Impact World Champion. I'm like, there's something to this. So if Vince McMahon, if you do bring her in, I'm going to be all for it. I'll be delighted to have her. Plus, it'll work with the whole thing with Charlotte, too, with the whole second generation thing with the women. And I'm with it, because there's money to be made off her. There's definitely money to be made off of Tessa Blanchard, even despite all the shit. And if she does come in the way she does, act in a certain type of way, we can always set her straight. We got Vince McMahon here, we got Triple H here, we got Stephanie McMahon here, and we can definitely deal with her. So I'm cool with Tessa Blanchard coming to WWE. This is my thoughts.
This is a 360
Big E.
and a half. Big E. Nah, I need Big E because listen, before we got on, Big E was like, listen, I need to check him in case, if anything. So I'm gonna give it up to the preacher of the Backstage Brawl. Speak some gospel. Big E making sense out of this.
Big E.
Gene. See, we talked about this, and I told you she was gonna be the best choice for WWE. Her best choice is going to WWE. Right now, they don't have Charlotte. They don't have any type of star power as far as the women go. The Bayley and Sasha thing, like we've been talking about for weeks, that's set in stone. That's gonna happen. Alexa Bliss, she's still in this purgatory tag team kind of thing. Who else is out there? Asuka, she's being the reigning Raw Women's Champion. Natalya looks like she's going to get into a tag team. They don't want to push any other women right now, which is sad, because Bianca Belair is just somewhere in the back, just dying to get a chance. We're pushing for you, Bianca. But this is what I told you. I don't think, and I'm an advocate for AEW. I love them. I want to see them succeed. But I don't think AEW is a good fit for her. She's going to get lost in the shuffle. The one thing I can honestly say about AEW, their women's division is better than WWE's women's division. I will give them that. They put a little more time and effort into their women's division. But WWE needs that dominant women's wrestler, and they got it. They're going to get it with Tessa Blanchard. Now, she has a lot of controversy behind her, obviously, And Gene felt very different yesterday, which I'm very happy. Very, very happy that he feels the way that I feel now.
Yeah, because I wasn't looking at the money, but now I am, and I'm like, you know what?
Yes,
Yeah.
the money talks, and we all know Vince has nothing but money.
Mm-hmm.
That AEW check compared to that WWE check, listen, you might want to take the money. But in all seriousness, though, with Tessa Blanchard possibly joining either company, I don't think that she would thrive with AEW. I think more she would thrive with WWE. There is still a lot of controversy with the Me Too movement going around. So, I mean, they still have Brock on payroll. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there's still a couple of people that was on that list that's on their payroll still. So, WWE, I don't think they're really worried about it. They're more worried about, okay, our next big show is SummerSlam, which is now, what, a month away almost? No, well, it's next month, not a month away. But it's
a little over 2 months.
Something like that, a little over 2 months. It's a little over 2 months away, and we need star power. We need to have this card stacked. And what way to do it? Eric Bischoff said it best. Controversy creates cash. There it is.
It's an interesting sight to see when, like, you have so much, like, her year has been, like, different from anybody else. You talk about controversy after controversy, because it started with her winning the title. She made that statement on Twitter. All of these women came out against her, and there was some weight to that situation, which has carried over into this particular situation. A lot of people have already kind of soured on her, outside of the ring. But in the ring, it's crazy. Kid Ty, your thoughts?
I see both sides of it, but I think that it's going to be a waiting game, personally, as far as when she gets picked up. It's ironic because before we did this podcast, I think a day, like yesterday, I was listening to Monsters, right? And he brought up the Tessa Blanchard situation. He brought up a lot of points that I think most of us have thought about, but a lot of good points to consider for the time. The reason why I say it's a waiting game isn't because they can't make a deal. Is it the right time to make a deal? Because, like you said, with the controversies that recently happened, they both have ties to current movements going on right now between the Speaking Out movement and the Black Lives Matter movement. And, somebody recently brought up the fact that, Randy Orton was 24 when he was considered problematic by the company. And Tessa Blanchard's currently 24. My standpoint on that is similar to what Monster said in his most recent clips and his most recent sound off. It's not a matter of if she will get signed, she will get signed. Because when you are a great talent, regardless of what you've done in the past, it has to be it has to be a deal breaker. I'm not going to say very drastic, because in some cases, we've had many different talents do some pretty wild and unforgivable shit that have been given second chances. In the case of, as much as I love Stone Cold, beat his wife. As much as I love Shawn Michaels, he was the epitome of the word asshole in the 90s, and they both ended up just fine. It's a weird world we live in, but that's the truth. And in the case of Tessa Blanchard, the fact that she's young, people will use that as a way to not justify, but excuse her slightly for what she's done. And it's only a matter of time that she gets signed. As far as which company will probably pick her up, the main bargaining chip with AEW is the fact that her dad's there, and the fact that she can have that good word put in for her. Outside of that, there's no reason for her to be there. When you really think about it, like, yes, she could be the top heel of the division. Yes, she could be one of the best assets and probably the answer to Charlotte for AEW. But in the same token, the only reason why WWE didn't sign her when they had the chance before she went on this crazy run, right, was because of her problematic issues backstage. Which is another reason why I think that might work against her in WWE, because that's the last impression she left and the first impression she left, right? But I think ultimately, maybe Triple H might not be for it, maybe some people might not be for it, but if Vince wants, and you know how he loves his third generation talent, he loves having the people with the lineage, I think Vince will want to have that, especially in female form, with all the absences, like Eric said. So I think WWE will be the one to snatch her up, but I don't think it'll be anytime soon, personally. I think that they will weigh their options, think about this to some extent, because the minute you sign her, the internet will be ready to prowl. Regardless of how we feel about cancel culture, what we can expect is for people to get on their case. And with some of the people that came out against her working for the company currently, or working for the company she just recently left, I'm pretty sure they'll let their voices be heard on how terrible a PR stunt that would be for either company to sign her. So that's kind of where I stand with it.
Yeah, and some of those people that are coming at her in WWE, they're in NXT. So if she goes down there, you already know they're gonna look at her like with some kind of look, like really.
My point exactly.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
So we discussed controversies. We discussed NXT. A lot of things that basically has been, riddled in NXT is COVID concerns. WWE announcing, that Renee Young had COVID as of last week. More news has come out about it. Kevin Owens just this, I believe, either earlier today or yesterday, he came out with a statement in regards to COVID, in regards to his wife's dad who just passed away due to it. And basically, it essentially exposed the WWE for not testing directly for COVID. People's Champ has his glasses on for a reason. There's a gold chain embedded. Not the audience doesn't see it, but there's a gold chain embedded. So there's a tag team. It looks like it was a handicap match. But first and foremost, I do want to go on behalf of the. I want to go to Mean Gene, the WWE aficionado himself, just to speak on behalf of the WWE in regards to making the changes right now and basically expounding upon your point that you made on your live earlier this week.
Okay. All right. So on behalf of the WWE, I would say that what they've done is that wasn't cool. That's unacceptable. When I initially went on my thing back in April, I think it was April, and I said that I had no problem with them running shows. Let's do it, Meek Mahan. I got no problem. Let's get this going. Let's get it going. Don't worry about that. We'll get it going. My understanding was that we were going to get these people tested on a weekly basis. Hell, every time they came to the Performance Center to perform, they were getting tested. And I'm not talking about a common thing, but they do. I'm not taking a little survey saying, "Are you sick? No. Are you sick? No." Or just a little, sneeze for me. No, I'm thinking what they were going to do was do the test that you're supposed to be doing for COVID. And that's putting the thing up their nostril and getting DNA, check to make sure if they got COVID or not. If they do, you get the boot. If you don't, let's get to performing. That's what I thought was going to happen. That is not what happened. I find out later, well, we all found out, 3 months after the fact, that WWE was not doing that. They were doing like a common survey. Are you sick? No. Are you sick? No. Or just like, do you feel some type of way? Yada, 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 not doing a real testing. So for me, that kind of pissed me off. And then it got where I got to look at someone like Randy over here coming at me talking about, how you feeling? Now you want to apologize to Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn, which no, Randy, you will not get an apology. Sami Zayn will not get an apology. And Roman Reigns will not get an apology either, because what I thought was going to happen did not happen. And we went 3 months in. We went 3 months in without getting COVID, all right? So I just going to put that out there before you get in your little thing. Please be reminded.
That we know of.
Well,
3 months.
I mean, Kayla got it right at the beginning.
Yeah. Kayla Braxton got it in March.
And how many people is she around? Blessing them with her presence.
Yeah, but again, even when she had it 3 months in, there was nobody in that company that we know of. That we know of, but you saw production was still pumping, things were still getting going.
Vince and COVID kept the show going after a literal death from the sky.
Hey man, that's neither here or there, okay? But what'd you say?
Good Dynamite. We gotta tag in People's Champ right now, because I feel like he's been silent. He's been biding his time. He's been waiting. He's been waiting like a serpent.
He's not even trying to be disrespectful. I'm just saying.
You're right. I'll bring it up. I was stable for him first.
To no party, being disrespectful to no party, WWE, anyone remotely involved. I'm just saying, Vince kept the show going after Owen Hart tragically fell to his death. You really think this, especially when you consider some of the news reports that he just considered this a bad flu, do you really think he was going to stop?
No, because
Did you
nobody
really?
exhibited symptoms of them having it. So
That
we're
we
good.
know of.
I mean, you saw production still running. You didn't see no one coughing or
Production would have been
sneezing in the
ran
ring.
by a
So
robot
we were good.
if Vince had the ability
were
to
good.
run it with the man. Let me tell you something. All right, I'm gonna tag my
Go
cousin.
ahead.
in. He's gonna let you know what's already on my mind. Yeah, Shades, go do it, Shades.
Go ahead, Shades.
Go ahead, Shades.
First of all, Gene, my dear
Yo.
friend, my very, very dear friend, what did you
Mhm.
learn?
I learned that
It
meat
doesn't matter what you learned.
behind play too much.
Because first of all, I told you this was going to happen. I told you. Roman Reigns is sitting at home with his beautiful newborn twins, sipping a Mai Tai with a brand new tattoo on his back saying, I ain't had to go. The first person that someone even reported close to having COVID was Miz. And he didn't show up for what event? What event did he show up for?
WrestleMania night.
Yeah. He didn't show up for WrestleMania, didn't he? It was who? John Morrison. That was his partner that participated in the triple threat match, right?
That boy flipped.
And that was a fire match.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It was a great match. But I told you, you went on live saying, well, Roman, it wasn't about COVID. Well, Roman, it wasn't about this. Roman, you knew from the moment you opened your goddamn mouth you were wrong. Kevin Owens.
Okay, so
right
tell me,
after WrestleMania,
what did he say?
It's my time now, jabroni. It is the champ's time.
Oh shit!
Go ahead, I'm ready.
I need this whole thing uploaded separately.
Roman Reigns had every right to sit home to protect himself and his family. I told you, even in the group chat and here on live in one of our earlier episodes, that this was going to fall flat on Vince McMahon's face in terms of public opinion. Sure, he's always going to make money to spite himself. That's who he is. That's always who Vince McMahon is going to be. Now, personally for me, I told you, listen, I know that I don't want them to do it, but I know Vince. Like Kid Tyner might have said, as my dear colleague Carl Coulange has said, a.k.a., the Chosen One has said, that Vince McMahon would continue production to spite himself. Even if he doesn't have anybody on production, he would craft himself a Johnny Five robot, for you 80s babies out there, to produce the show with as a camera crew, as a timekeeper, referee. Doesn't matter. He'll do it to spite himself, because why? Vince McMahon is always about the money. Never about his people. Sure, you can see the Taker documentary. He'll make you seem like he's for the people, but don't get me wrong. Vince McMahon is just like every other jabroni that's out there with a business. All about the almighty dollar. Putting his people at risk. And you blasted Roman Reigns nearly 3 months ago in spite of that.
Yes, sir.
And here we are today in the first day of July, first of the month. We have not only one, but many cases of coronaviruses in the WWE. With Renee Young.
Possibly 2 dozen.
With Renee Young being out. Kayla Braxton's beautiful self being out. Get well soon.
Both beautiful. Both beautiful. Yes.
Legit, basically all the interviewer front lines except for Charlie Caruso.
Which is a scary thought, because those are the ones that interact with everybody else the most.
Yeah, the Renee Young thing worried me the most, because she loves to interact, and it's like
Not even just.
And you have to understand, these are the cases that we know about. Imagine the other cases that we don't know about. Hell, Adam Pearce is another person who got it, and not only that, during that time, there have been people saying, well, you don't have to wear masks. What? This is Vince McMahon. This is your savior, Vince McMahon, doing all this crap to spite himself. You knew it was going to somehow fall flat on his face because he can't help himself. You knew this was going to happen. You knew this was going to happen. And now we are here with a shortage of stars, and Heyman's gone for whatever reason, and he's back to the same old BS, backstage, undermining talent. Like, let's just say this. how many matches can you count was on Raw this past week, rather than segments?
Probably on one hand.
How much segment time do you think we had this past week?
On two hands.
I have one point to bring up that
What's up, Ty?
I think this sums up everything.
Mm.
If there was a serious enough protocol for the COVID-19 situation, which we knew they weren't because they were doing, at least from the reports we've gotten, it's just been a lot of fever checks, temperature checks, Why was Ric Flair there?
Mm.
I don't know. Not only that,
Somebody with a lot of health problems. He shouldn't have been there at all.
This man has survived death twice, and I don't want to see him go for round 3.
Twice that we know of.
there's a lot of people in the WWE that have suffered from health problems. And I've been prefaced by saying this even in late, when we first started the podcast, that you're putting people at risk. I know at some point, much to our chagrin, he's going to continue to run the show. We know that. We know Vince is going to do it. But the thing about it is, like you said, Gene, which is why I'm proud of you to say, taking some accountability in that and saying that you were wrong in thinking that Vince was going to do the show with proper precautions.
Mm-hmm.
This is the same Vince McMahon that refuses to have a wrestlers union. This is the same Vince McMahon that would call someone who just finished surgery saying, okay, how long can you get back? This is the same Vince McMahon that, sure, on the surface, he'll say, I care about you. The moment that you're cleared to wrestle, he'll call you back.
Word to
You're not
CM Punk.
immensely ready to go. And then when they calls you back, they have nothing for you. Look what happened to Dean Ambrose before he left.
CM Punk with
Tom
Ryback in 2012,
Tom Moxley.
2013.
When CM Punk came back after, tearing his meniscus in his knee, he was defending the WWE Championship on a freaking torn meniscus.
Word to
He had
Harley.
surgery. Didn't have any recovery time to repair a torn meniscus.
Kabuki.
This guy inserting his freaking comments.
Not only that, he was hurt even when the rise of Roman Reigns.
Like
CM Punk.
he was hurt for the longest
Bruised ribs.
time. Like the biggest problem that me and Carl been trying to enlighten you, young brother, is the fact that Vince McMahon should always have protocols in case if shit happens. Like, I'm not sure AEW claims that they have it, but it's yet to be seen. But they're making.
They don't got any cases though, do they?
They made some strides.
They do, actually.
They
They
have
do.
some cases. Well, the champion.
I mean, John
The
Moxley.
champion.
John Moxley is one of them.
But no, John didn't have corona. He said that he got in contact with somebody, which we obviously found out.
Nigga, he has corona.
Who had.
Nigga, he has corona.
He lives
If you
with
got
it.
in
Corona.
if you got into contact with somebody who had the flu,
Son, all I know is that on the Wrestling Observer they said that they tested him and it tested negative. They tested negative. That's
I
what
would say this. That's homie's wife.
He got.
if you're around your wife long enough, eventually
God.
your chances increase. At least you have to admit that. So you have to. At
Hell,
least
if I'm married to Renee Young, I'm getting it off the first second. I don't keep it real with you. But
Let's get back to what I'm saying.
yeah.
Vince McMahon should have had precautions set up. He should have done this a whole lot better. And when Vince was going to bring back the shows at the Performance Center, and you were cheering, we're back, we're going to see TV. You knew he was going to do something. You knew he was not going to take the necessary precautions to ensure the safety of his wrestlers. You knew that.
I thought he was going to take the necessary precautions.
Well, based on McMahon's history, you should have known better. And here we are today.
I don't blame you for being optimistic in the slightest.
Now,
But
like Tyler said, it's okay to be optimistic, but if you know Vince McMahon long enough, you know there's certain the man will cut corners. He's a real life Mr. Krabs.
there was internal frustration over people revealing that they had COVID. How do you get mad at somebody for revealing they have a disease that could threaten their life? For leaking it out to the public? Like, imagine the fact that they harbored it, like they were kind of like manifesting it for so long, and they let this happen because of the lack of precautions taken, right? And then it gets out when Renee puts out her statement, and then Kayla puts out her statement, and then more word comes out that we might have 24 people or more, and that's just talent, right? That's a combination of in-ring talent, producers. We're not even talking about the families that they mentioned came to the Performance Center as fans or this and that. Like, there are more people affected by this than just the talent because of that lack of precaution. The fact that they got angry.
CM Punk had a staph infection that went undetected for months. And they kept giving him
we can go on and on about these topics. At the end of the day, you know, it's about damn time they do it. You know, there is a saying, better late than never, but still, like, Jesus, you know what I mean? I wish I could stick on the topic, but we got so much to cover, especially, you know, bleeding into Monday Night Raw. Randy touched on it earlier. A lot of cinematic stuff going on. Originally, you know, and we were explaining this throughout the past couple of weeks, we were liking the intertwining storylines and the angles and all that stuff, but now it's seeming like it's kicking into overdrive. Is it overkill for us? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Overkill?
It's getting there.
Like, by the time they got to that Adam Cole Velveteen Dream parking lot brawl thing, I was just like, all right, yeah, I need to stop. And then the Viking Raiders Street Profits thing set it in stone for me that they need to stop. Like, this is too much, okay? Like, y'all were nailing it with the final beat. Y'all nailed it with the Boneyard. Y'all nailed it with the Firefly Funhouse. But there's such a thing as too much. And then at Extreme Rules, y'all going to do a swamp fight match between Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman, and the Universal title isn't even on the line. It's like, I don't even know what the hell a swamp fight match is. All right, I don't know, what does that mean? Does that mean we're going to get animals there? Like, how do you win this match? You have to throw them in the swamp like how do you do the mud wrestling shit with the women? I don't know. I don't know how you win this match, and it doesn't make any sense to me. Now, do I have faith in Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman? I do, but then I remembered that Bray Wyatt was also in something called the House of Horrors match, and that is not very much regarded as such good shit by fans. So I'm skeptical on this swamp fight thing, but I think they're going too much. They need to chill down. They need to relax for a little bit. I hope SummerSlam doesn't have one, but I think they'll most likely have some for SummerSlam. I
like the fridge.
If the fans don't come back, they'll definitely give some kind of cinematic match to somebody. Somebody's getting a cinematic match.
So here's my thing with the cinematic matches. I don't mind it, but now you're starting to oversaturate it. It's starting to become like a regular thing that I'm going to see on TV. I don't want it to be a regular thing.
On every pay-per-view?
Right, on every pay-per-view. No. Now, doing it at a Big Four pay-per-view event, you might do like, 2 a year at a Big Four? That's fine. I can deal with that. Like 1 year, you know, just volleyball it. Like, okay, they did it at WrestleMania. They did it twice at WrestleMania. So now we're going to do it again at SummerSlam. And then we're not going to do one for Survivor, and we're not going to do one for Royal Rumble. Fine. I'm okay with that. And then when the next year starts, okay, maybe we'll do Rumble and Survivor. But besides the point, it's becoming to the point now where cinematic matches are going to be a regular thing. And as in Vince fashion, I'm sorry, like Randy said earlier with the COVID thing, we all know Vince. Vince likes a good laugh. He likes to entertain himself. So he's going to make jokes out of these cinematic matches. Just like how the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits were supposed to have a match at the last pay-per-view, and it turned into, you know, a bad adaptation of Fast and the Furious. Like, it was a joke. I don't want cinematic matches to be a joke. The best one that they've done so far, and we all can agree to this, was the Boneyard match. The Boneyard match had everything in a cinematic match that you would want. It had drama. It had two guys that could work. It had everything. It was perfect. Even the Wyatt and Cena match, that's a strong too. Because we saw a different side of John Cena, but then we also get to see inside like the twisted mind of Bray Wyatt as, you know, Bray Wyatt in the Firefly Funhouse. So it's the cinematic matches. I'm okay with it, but now you're starting to oversaturate it. You have to tone it back. The swamp match, I didn't even know they had a swamp match going on. I agree with you, Gene. I don't know what the hell that is. How do you win? Is there going to be a possum running around? I don't know.
Maybe.
Like, what the hell is going on with that?
Will there be water?
Will there be water? Because
That'd be water in the swamp, man, if you don't stop.
what did they have? They had final deletion. They did the final deletion. That was the original cinematic match before they started calling it cinematic matches. They had final deletion just basically going off of, you know, the whole thing with TNA and how they did with Matt Hardy. And I mean, it was kind of missed. It wasn't the original.
I'm curious. Was it the House of Horrors or the final deletion that was first?
Final deletion came first. They did one with the New Day, and then I'm positive.
Yeah,
I'm very positive about this.
The House of Horrors was 2017 though.
House of Horrors was after WrestleMania, after Randy won the WWE title from Bray Wyatt.
Yeah.
They did that, but then but final deletion. No, you might be right.
Oh yeah, because House of Horrors was technically the first take.
Hardy didn't turn into broken Matt Hardy until after Mania.
Yeah, so final deletion.
Left. So yeah,
that was the first cinematic
original
match of the Hardy era. Yeah, of WWE.
The original one was the House of Horrors match, which was
that was great.
That was it was the right name for it. It was House of Horrors. It was horrible. But the fridge, listen, the fridge won.
I'm talking about the fridge, man.
No. Your quick thing before we change gears.
Yeah.
I think that if they do the swap match, I think since they are in Florida, there's a lot of swamps, so I'm pretty sure they're probably gonna shoot it there. And because they have a lot of gators and stuff like that there. Because it's Florida, you're bound to like know someone who like owns one of those like places where like you wrestle alligators and shit. So I'm pretty sure they're gonna do that. Also. I do like basically everything Eric said, like hit it on the head in terms of cinematic matches. Like you should make it feel special. It doesn't have to be 3 months. And the fucked up part about it is the last 2 pay-per-views have all had themes to it. Last pay-per-view was the greatest match ever, and now we're getting a horror show. Like
pay-per-views are. It seems like pay-per-views are almost turning into movies in a way.
I hope that doesn't mean that horror show tagline. I'm hoping it doesn't mean the papers gonna be shit.
Like Vince gotta chill.
To that point, because the other point that you brought up was, the intertwining storylines, which is something we talked about in previous podcasts that we really enjoyed. Now, just to get this out the way, especially for the future podcast, just because you like a concept doesn't mean you like every interpretation of it, right?
Yeah.
So I'll give a perfect example, one that's closer to my heart. I've been bringing it up all the time on the podcast, the women's division. When you see a lot of intertwining storylines, you can either show the strength of the company or the desperation of the company. And understandably so, WWE is desperate because of the time that we're in. To Randy's point, they didn't have to put themselves in that situation, but we're here. So if you look at the women's division, that lack of depth we mentioned earlier has caused them to make matches such as Sasha versus Io Shirai, Sasha versus Kana, or Asuka, I should say. You have a lot of these storylines where Bayley and Sasha are tag team champions again when they didn't really need to have the tag titles involved, right? You see Charlotte being able to hop shows before she got hurt, right? You're seeing a lot of crossover right now, and it seems like some of the essence of the what do they call that? This, not the Superstar Shakeup, the wild card rule. There we go. The wild card rule has kind of come back because of the ratings, because of this and that. And I guess my point being, it all falls under that whole umbrella of it's showing the weaknesses and desperation of the company that they constantly have to go back to certain gimmicks just to get like a pop because it worked one time. And this even goes past the Corona thing, because remember when the Gauntlet match got all that buzz like 2 years ago? What was it? The Seth Rollins one where he had the longest, like he beat Benoit's longest performance on Raw thing. And then after that, how many Gauntlet matches did you see after that? The 2 out of 3 falls matches during like the pay-per-view, not the pay-per-view, the Raw period where they didn't like action happening during the commercials. They had 2 out of 3 falls matches constantly on Monday Night Raw because of stuff like that. Once Vince McMahon gets his hands on a theme, he kind of runs it into the ground in recent years. And in a time where they really can't afford that, it really does show where the company's at creatively. And like I've mentioned in the past, If you're in a situation where people aren't caring that much, just keep grinding until you get the fans back in the arenas. Because you have to think of it from an archival standpoint too. If people are watching this years from now and they're wondering what was going on during this time, they're going to be upset when y'all are doing swerves like this because the continuity flies out the window and then the storylines mean less. So I think they need to hold off on exhausting all the gimmicks that they've struck gold with recently. That's what I'm trying to say.
And it's funny too because like you mentioned the women's division, which is a very, very strong concern, which all goes back to the beginning of the podcast, with the Tessa Blanchard situation. But as it pertains to Raw in particular, we kind of saw a lot of gripes with Big Show's involvement. He was in 4 particular segments throughout the night, 3-hour show, while you have certain stars who are being basically cannon fodder to bigger storylines such as a Cedric Alexander and a Ricochet. So it is very tough. Initially I was even thinking of like, let's do a book it or bury it, but it's like in the framework of Big Show, it's kind of hard to basically navigate because to your point, Ty, it's a good concept, but when it gets beat to shreds, it kind of loses steam. And now he's feuding with Garza and, Garza and Almas and doing this thing. And at some point, he's talking to Vegas.
I will say this. There is continuity here because Big Show, since 2008, Big Show's storylines have been very random. Especially once we passed 2010, like post-Jericho. Anything you saw Big Show involved in?
Hold on. We'll cut it.
Oh, disrespectful now. I'm playing.
When it comes to Big Show's like storylines ever since like probably post-Jericho, I'm going to say post-Jericho, they've been very random. In some places he strikes gold, like in the early parts of the Authority storyline, but in other places you see him have multiple heel and face turns. So this is nothing new for Big Show, but sadly that continuity mixing with the lack of continuity of Raw, we don't need Big Show in every segment. For some reason, he was at WrestleMania earlier this year, and although I found that hilarious, I'm still trying to figure out: is Big Show just like is he a secret agent in the post quarantine Raw? Like he appears when you expect him to least.
Boo Radley.
I think he's the dude in the ninja suit. I think I've got my answer. I think he just slims out when he has the suit on.
See that? You see that?
I mean, he's down with the sickness, so it could be possible.
People gonna bring up, but the Ninja and Big Show in the same place. No, they weren't. That's Big Show. That's not Paul White. Paul White was in the Ninja suit. If Kane could do it, Big Show could do it. That's all I'm saying.
It's a fact, man. That's a fact. Fyter Fest versus the Great American Bash Part 1. On one side, we got, it seems as if Teddy Long basically went into GM mode and booked Fyter Fest for us. On another side, we got basically like the revolution, the women's evolution pay-per-view kind of going on the other. Which side are we going towards? We got the Jericho. Which side are we going for tonight? NXT, AEW.
I got you. NXT. I never get to answer this question first. I had to do it this time. NXT, and I'll tell you why. Because this is the pettiest ambition project I've seen from Triple H yet. Mm-hmm. And he ain't stupid. All right, let me put it to you like this. In private conversations you've had with most of your fans, if you grew up during Attitude or Ruthless Aggression, you loved when pay-per-views had their own identities. And after a certain point, a lot of those pay-per-views kind of flew out the window. Concepts like Unforgiven, Armageddon, No Way Out made an appearance a couple years ago, but it wasn't the same No Way Out you grew up on, right? So the Great American Bash is a pay-per-view that I personally have been wanting to come back for a while.
Yes.
Because I feel like it's stupid that you have a pay-per-view built for July, that you can have in early July, especially during a period where they did have 2 pay-per-views happen in the same month at times too. So you could have had it happen early in July and then another pay-per-view happen later in July, whether it was brand exclusive or brand inclusive. So the Great American Bash had a sweet niche where you could have it that weekend of Independence Day, and the arena was always fire. You love the stage, the patriotic feel. You're continuing the tradition of the old WCW Great American Bash. And the SmackDown ones from back in the day weren't bad either, right? You had some sleeper matches like Matt Hardy versus MVP for the U.S. Championship, as an example. You had some matches, and the U.S. Championship could all revolve around that title on the pay-per-view, by the way. That's a side note. We'll talk about that another day. But the reason why I say NXT is more interesting to me right now is because not only are they bringing back an old pay-per-view concept, which they already started within your house, it's only going to continue. You already know where this is going. I won't be surprised if we see Armageddon come back or something like that.
Oh,
But calm yourself. This is a family podcast.
says you.
Okay. Point being, this pay-per-view coming back is a cool thing because, for one, nostalgia. Whole influx of nostalgia, people getting the network just to see Great American Bash. Two, they're trying to stack out this card with some sleeper matches. I've already seen Thatcher and what's his name, Oni Lorcan on the card. I see, Io and Sasha on the card, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on night one.
They're already giving us unconventional matches that would be that are pay-per-view-esque, but good for a TV special, right? So you're giving us these matches which are gonna rock the show. Everyone's gonna tune in. It's on. I think it's on free TV, right? They're not doing it on the network.
No,
So
yeah.
now you're giving. Now
It's
you're,
in USA.
it's a great Costco sample to give you a taste of what you can expect on TakeOver. They're gonna deck out this ring because what they did it in your house. You know they're going to try to make a patriotic themed show for this. Maybe they won't go as all out for it as they did for In Your House, but they're going to do something. And it's going to be a nice throwback. It's going to be cool. And if NXT can keep taking advantage of using old nostalgic pay-per-views, that influx of traffic is going to be ridiculous. Now, I say it's petty because Fyter Fest has already happened. And now they're doing another one the way they should be, and Triple H is seeing this and going, no. We put 10. I think last time we had something like this, they had the NXT takeover, the UK takeover happen on the same night as an AEW pay-per-view. So this is nothing new. This is nothing new, which is why I say it is petty ambition. But I love it. I wish we had more build to the Great American Bash, as we've mentioned in the past, right? Yeah. But now that we have this short build, it does make things somewhat interesting because now you want to see how they tie everything into this big TV event. So I'm going with NXT on this one.
And Kid Dynamite going NXT, and the reason is because Triple H is adopting Mamba/Jordan mentality of taking it personally. Mean Gene.
Yeah. What's up, man? You already know me, man. WWE guy. I'm going with the Great American Bash. There was some good points that Ty brought in, like with the Great American Bash. I, for one, have always been a fan of that pay-per-view. It's been one of my pay-per-views that I've watched. Especially loved it when SmackDown was holding it down for all those years they did. So I'm going to be excited to see this. I like the card that they got going on right here. Ty said this sounds like with Triple H doing the show. Hold on. Triple H doing this show on the same day as Fyter Fest. I'm like, I don't know. I see Triple H, but I could also see Vince McMahon doing this because I heard Vince McMahon is also putting his hands on NXT. So I can kind of see Vince McMahon also putting his hands on like, yo, hey, we need something to combat this. I hear this AEW show's got that little thing going on. What do we got? And then probably Triple H said, oh, how about the Great American Bash? Which is fine because NXT, you mentioned earlier with the In Your House stuff, they've honestly, they killed it with In Your House. I loved it. The only thing I didn't like was the cinematic thing, but everything else besides that was fantastic. So I love that they're bringing this back. You brought up Armageddon. Hell, if they could bring back Vengeance, I'd be cool with that. In the social media era we're in now, I would personally love to see if they could bring Cyber Sunday.
I don't disagree with you, but there's one reason we can't bring back Vengeance.
Why?
We talked about it last.
Oh, Benoit. Yeah.
The last Vengeance was ironically the first Night of Champions.
Yep.
Can't do it. I feel you.
All right. So, but in the social media era we're in right now, I would like to see if we could bring in Cyber Sunday. Cyber Sunday would be a nice thing.
Yes.
If they could bring that back because I'm doing like in this era that we're in now, I'm still surprised. I've not heard a single word.
I want to rant about that, but we have a show to do and we can't be here forever. We'll do that we'll do that another day. But yes.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, like I said, Great American Bash, excited for it. And that's me rocking with NXT tonight.
Big E.
I guess, I'm going to be with everybody else, NXT. I mean,
Feel like a clean sweep. Let me bring the
clean sweep. It's going to be a clean sweep. And I agree with everybody else on the floor. I think you called it the Jordan mentality of taking it personal. It has a lot to do with that. And also, maybe he's developing a little bit of Vince in him himself. I mean, listen, how long has AEW been calling out WWE and WWE has been sitting on its plateau and saying, hey, do whatever you want to do. I'm not bothering you. But AEW is that little kid on the playground that has to prove himself, and he's just poking at the bear. Cody's been poking at him for almost, a year and a half now. Just still poking at him. Triple H is just like, yo, fuck it, I'm tired. I'm just gonna, you know what I'm gonna do to really poke at you? I'm gonna take your dad's pay-per-view. Because guess what? You can't have the name. I can have it. And that's basically what happened. He took the name, used it. As far as the card goes, both shows are 2 nights. They don't have, NXT doesn't have much for night 2. We know the big match for night 2 is going to be Keith Lee and Adam Cole, which is going to be great. Night 1, I'm looking forward to Io Shirai and Sasha Banks, only because it's an interesting dynamic between those two. They have some similarities, but they're very different in the ring. So I want to see how that goes down. And then, of course, you know, the long-lasting storyline of Bayley and Sasha. Will this continue going into the Great American Bash? Will this kind of bleed into Friday Night SmackDown and everything?
Are we gonna see an all champions tag match eventually with these? Because
are we going to start seeing dissension within Bayley and Sasha? Because that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for out of this match. This is what I'm looking for out of this match. Are you going to start planting the seeds now? Is the continuity gonna start now? Because right now they've been having everyone on the outside looking in, poking at Bayley and Sasha. Now it's time for them to start poking at each other. No sexual reference intended. But, you know.
Also, shout out to NXT. Sasha. I know she's looking forward to this match. Not to interrupt.
Yeah, man. She's been wanting this shit for, I think, 2 or 3 years now.
I mean, she was excited. Shout out to her for that tweet, by the way, when she attacked Asuka. She referenced a tweet Asuka put out a couple years ago.
Yeah, the Cherry Blossom.
I've seen that.
Her love for Joshi wrestling. I know she's been so excited with everything that's going on right now. Everything.
That's a fact. People's Champ. Let's hear. Is it a sweep or you giving some love to AEW? Which way?
AEW. Fuck out of here. NXT, baby.
What'd I tell y'all?
God. Damn. Stupid. Nah, the only reason why I say that is because I do think, and Biggie's last statement alluded to it, call me crazy, but I do think that Io and Sasha would not only steal a show for NXT, but might steal a show between both shows. I think it might be the best match of the night between both shows because of that dynamic. And considering how Io's last performance was at Last in Your House, I think that she has a good opportunity of, her and Sasha can bring it to the table. And it's been a while since I've seen Sasha very, motivated. And at one point, Sasha was NXT, and she gave nothing but 5-star matches. So let's see if some of that magic, that black and yellow magic come back. So,
quick question for the floor. Quick question. Do you think this match has the potential to top Bayley and Sasha at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn?
Absolutely.
No, because I don't think so. Because this match is not going to end the way we would want it, like a straight pinfall or submission. This ain't going to end that way. It's going to end some shenanigans.
Not even that. It's just under the confines of television.
Doesn't get the Iron Woman match.
No, I mean,
under the confines of television, especially as it pertains to now, it's very hard to pull off like a 4.5 to 5-star match under the confines of television now, as opposed to like 2003 to 2005 era, because back then pay-per-views carried a lot of weight, and because they carried a lot of weight, as did the television matches, and there were stories that were also implemented that basically fed off of that. You don't love Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, SmackDown just because it was a fantastic match. You love Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar because they built it. And I'm not saying, this is not an indictment on the booking or anything like that. It's just how it is now, because everything, from the in-ring work to production to everything is just so kind of like, 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be fantastic, not selling it short, but it's going to be very hard to top that type of match. Ty.
I think
Ty, what'd you say?
No, I say absolutely as on the marquee. The fact that they are going to have commercials, the fact that they are going to, not have the crowd also to amplify the match, those will also work against it as well. I think that this will be probably the best women's match one-on-one on television this year. I do think it'll be more entertaining than Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley. I do think it'll be one of those matches you remember because, like Randy said, when Sasha's motivated, her match performance skyrockets compared to her regular performance, which is saying something because the regular performance is very solid. There's never been a problem with it. And the fact that she's working with somebody that's a friend of hers, someone she's admired for years, someone who's literally a walking, talking legend. Like, people don't realize it because they're kind of in the American sphere, but Asuka and Io are so held in a high regard for their in-ring work from Japan alone, let alone their appearances in the indies and around the world, right? Like, if you are a wrestling nerd like Sasha is, working with these two on the regular has to be like a out-of-body experience, as Jim Ross would say. So the fact that she's going to have everything to prove, she's going to be motivated to work, she's going to be motivated to show she can hang with somebody like Io, who people, and even in NXT, they're commentating, is one of the best talents walking the face of the earth. Like, even Smarks can't deny that. Like, as much as, like, when somebody says Drew's one of the best, it's like, yeah, he couldn't beat Okada. It's like Io comes in and it's like, okay, yeah, you straight. Like, they're going to have one of the best television matches in this quarantine era, for sure. I think the potential is definitely there. But, yeah, only because of the television circumstances, the randomness of the build and everything, it won't get all the love that it deserves. But it'll be up there in the top women's matches for sure of the modern era.
It's definitely going to be the main event tonight.
Yeah, I look at it honestly. I look at it and I honestly think, before moving on, I see AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan. It's going to be a fantastic television match that, if certain circumstances were different, we would look at it higher later on. But getting into AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, SmackDown is on Friday night.
Wait, JJ, before you say that, I just want to say something. Like, back to Ty's point. I know we're supposed to be moving on, but I gotta say something. Like, we have like a bunch of other matches on this show though, like Oney Lorcan and Timothy Thatcher. That should definitely get some time. The Fatal 4-Ways definitely got to get some time. It's like, do you think that they will give Io and Sasha the time that they honestly should get for a match like that?
They're going to get time. This one match has sold everybody on Great American Bash despite all the nonsense of the build. Think about that. If this match, before they even mentioned the multi-title match, right? It was this match that sold pretty much the majority of the wrestling community that this is something to watch. If no one's going to watch the rest of the card, they're going to come for this match. They will get time. Especially if
you
it's
could
a
have
two-night
put
event.
both of their names. They could have put both of their names together and not even say that they're going to have a match. But just seeing that Sasha and Io are on the card, people are going to tune in.
There will be a giant, in the vein of Eric, because Eric had a controversial joke last week. There's my controversial joke. There will be a cleanup on aisle 12 because there will be tears, bodily fluids, and blood spread all around the floor for the reaction for this match. This will bring fans together of all different types of awesome and creepy.
You had to do it right as he was drinking something too. That's what killed me. That's what killed me about that.
But no, seriously, this is a match that everybody wants to see. Yeah. This match will blow expectations, and if it doesn't, it'll at least reach expectations. My opinion.
Oh my God, bodily fluid. So SmackDown. Last week obviously, was a tribute to Undertaker. That week was the last episode of Taker's last ride. We had the whole basically, honorary, thing with him. Baron Corbin came out as the heel to basically catch that, that cheap heat, as one Mick Foley would say, and Jeff Hardy basically ran him off. Ended the show with some good continuity, playing off of the 2002 feud between he and Undertaker, basically giving him that tribute. But not going in, knowing much about what's going on with SmackDown, what is something that you are anticipating for this coming Friday?
AJ Styles versus Drew Gulak for the Intercontinental Championship. That should have happened last week. Didn't happen, but I'm waiting to see it this week. I know they were all supposed to do, like, we're also, like, when it comes, there's this little nod here about story continuity, because it's kind of weird that you have Jeff Hardy doing the thing with the King Corbin thing and he gets a victory, when honestly he should have been, like, I get why they did it, but it's like when you really think about it, Sheamus is supposed to toast this man this week, because of the defeat that he suffered at Backlash. And it's like, yeah, does that really make sense since you have Jeff Hardy going into this toast on a high note when honestly he should be coming in all depressed, like, oh my God, like I'm a loser, I just can't beat Sheamus, and I'm just like wandering around. But he's going into this knowing that he just honored one of his all-time faves. So it's like, I don't know how you do this toast after that. Hopefully they'll figure out something, but it was just weird.
So follow-up question to that. Because they promoted it, and then the situation where we found out about everybody's COVID thing and 24 situation, and it basically changed the trajectory of that show. Mm-hmm. Do you hold them accountable for going that direction, or do you give them like if you had to say a percentage, like hold you accountable, give you some lead? Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, like which way would you like lend toward? Because SmackDown, to me personally, it seemed that way. Like I agree, like it lended toward that way myself. But when I thought about it, I was like, but after what came out, what can you do? You know?
I mean, when I was watching it, like I was watching the show, like it wasn't. I didn't think it was a bad show. I thought it was okay. Like yes, I'm gonna be honest. I came into SmackDown because I wanted to see, like, I'm a Blue Brand fan for life. But I was mostly coming in to see that AJ Drew Gulak match for the Intercontinental Championship. That's what I was hoping for, and I didn't get it. Instead, they did the whole thank you Taker thing, which again is like, Undertaker, please. They did all this shit for you. I love you, man, but please don't come back, because if they do all this shit and you still come back to this, like, come on, man. Like, a fan in me has a few matches I want to see Taker in, but after all of this stuff with the SmackDown tribute, the Raw tribute, even though SmackDown did the much longer thing, which makes sense because, Taker's a Blue Brand guy. So I'm all for it. The show wasn't bad for me. They showed the Boneyard match and, Undertaker's Survivor Series thing and yada, yada. And then they spent the last hour doing what they could. Had no problem with that. King Corbin coming off as a major douche. Undertaker's an old bag of bones. He's only here for the money and all the talent that he's, buried and all that other shit, which was fine for me. It made sense for Corbin. It made sense for Corbin to be that guy because he had, like, there's no one else on this Raw or SmackDown that could have pulled this off other than King Corbin, because he is the type of guy. He's the guy that can say whatever the hell he wants. They will always come at him on Twitter, and all he'll do is just leave a laugh emoji, like ha 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 ha. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm unfazed by what you're doing. I'm cool with it. So I had no problem with this. It was just the fact that it was Jeff Hardy who's supposed to be doing a toast with Sheamus. It's like, man, could y'all really have not found somebody else to do this? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't think of anybody else that they could have done this with The Undertaker other than Jeff Hardy. So that was my only gripe. That it was Jeff Hardy.
I could have seen Braun doing it, honestly.
But I know that. But I'm like, I don't see Braun and him barely had any Braun and Undertaker barely had anything except the MSG tag team match.
I mean, like, they could have brought up since they were talking about Taker both in and out of character on the episode. I mean, Braun has mentioned multiple times how close he's gotten with Taker over the years and how Taker helped him become a better big man. So he could have revealed some of that on the episode as to why he was doing the tribute, especially with him being the top representative of SmackDown. I think that also could have worked pretty well since he's a champion too. It would have been like the champion send off. No, it's true.
Yeah, that was his best promo he's ever did.
It's true. I'm just saying, like, if they could have found a different representative, I'm just saying Braun could have worked. Is all I'm saying.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
That was the best promo.
Yeah. Short on time, so I'm gonna just keep the ball rolling. Not on the initial agenda for today, but we did like have this news. I don't want to end on it, but I feel like it's a good thing to talk about. So, Hana Kimura, the basically the 22-year-old who passed away a couple of weeks back due to just online bullying and cyberbullying, things of that nature. There was news that came out that her mom basically explained some of the stuff that happened on the reality show that she was a part of in Japan was staged, which led to certain, like the things that we basically popularly know as her demise. Kid Tai, as a big proponent of the Joshi culture and just those women out there, the women wrestlers. What's your take on this? How do you personally feel, and do you? Yeah, just floor is yours.
So details came out from Kyoko Kimura, Hannah's mother, that also former professional wrestler herself, that essentially, to generalize the details, Hana Kimura was goaded and pressured by the people running Terrace House, the show that she was on, to essentially act more erratic, act more, essentially like a bitch, to kind of spike ratings, which for me is kind of weird because Japanese TV kind of like, I don't know the culture that well, but a lot of the Japanese TV or the things I've heard about is that it's usually very optimistic, happy. It's not really as controversial as it is here in America, where people get off on, that type of erratic behavior. I mean, just look at the reality shows we have in America, we've had over the years, right? So, they basically distorted her character because she was playing a heel prior to, her passing away. But they essentially wanted to maximize that by 10. And the fact that, the scene that people refer back to that kind of set everything in motion as to why she passed away was the scene where she was getting mad at somebody because her clothes had got shrunk in the wash, right? And essentially they goaded her into getting even angrier at the guy, or they were trying to they staged the event essentially to make it seem like she was really pissed off. And they even to the point where they goaded her and saying, you should slap him across the face, which she refused to do. She didn't want to do something like that. It's not in her actual character as a person. So she compromised and slapped the hat out of his hand or something like that, right? And most people who know Hana who knew her as a person knew she was very, a very nice person, virtually an angel, like she was very kind-hearted. So the fact that they were making her do this, she had conflicts with herself. She messaged her mother, she messaged other people about how they were goading her into doing certain things, trying to get her to act certain ways on the show. And even the person who was involved in that staged scene on Terrace House confirmed that it was staged, right? So the reason why it's very frustrating is because it indirectly set in motion her suicide. The fact that they forced her to act a certain way just for their own desire to get more attention on the show. That was her first proper introduction to a larger audience outside of pro wrestling, so that's the only impression she was able to leave on certain people, right? The fact that she passed away in a time in COVID where we've all sat with our thoughts kind of alone because we can't distract ourselves nearly as easily as we wanted to, despite all the technological advances that we have that we can use to distract ourselves. We can't go outside. We can't go to work. We can't go with our friends. We're with ourselves more now than we've been in some time, right? So the fact that you're collected with your thoughts and you're constantly around your thoughts and you're seeing all this backlash for a scene that you didn't even want to do, a scene that you fought against for the way you're approached on the show that's not resonant with your character as a person, not as a wrestler, but as a person, right? The fact that all of that happened in such a short span of time, and this is how people primarily remembered her prior to the suicide, it's just an overall frustrating situation because it was a situation that wasn't really in her hands. And the only reason why she joined the show was to bring more attention to Japanese pro wrestling, to pro wrestling in general, to introduce people to our world, essentially, our sphere. There were other supplementary reasons as well that all tied to wanting to get eyes on pro wrestling. Like she literally was putting herself out there to help bring more attention to the business that we all get to talk about and do podcasts about every week and watch just for our own leisure. So the fact that she basically gave so much only to get nothing in the end, but just a terrible send-off and a terrible way to exit the world, all because of the producers and the people involved in the show, it makes the situation even more heartbreaking and even more frustrating for the people who are fortunate enough to continue telling her story. So when Jay and I found out about the news today, we talked about whether we wanted to bring it in. I already had plans to talk about it. But yeah, I don't like to end it on that note either, but I felt like it was kind of our due diligence to keep people posted on that so that they don't lead everything to their own assumptions about what happened. Give people the straight facts of what was going on. And no, yeah, it's an absolute and total shame. And it makes the situation even more of it could have been avoided. And the fact that it kind of feels like it was instigated to go that route, it just doesn't resonate well with me. And I feel like if I could speak on the behalf of everybody at the Backstage Brawl, probably all kind of wanting to, we all feel like those people should be ashamed of themselves for what they did.
Yeah. And like, to your point, before getting on and just like hearing about the news, it was one of those things where like when I heard about it, I was like, yeah, I'm open to talk about it, because at the end of the day, in a climate like this, such as this, to your point, you're alone with your thoughts. You don't believe that not many people are thinking about these type of situations. And, you could feel at one point, you could just sit there and be like, yo, I'm the only person concerned about this particular situation that affects me, but it affects everybody else. But it does affect me directly. So for anybody who's watched the show, who's followed us and X, Y, and Z, and has dealt with certain situations on the internet, because we've all been through it. For those people, like, we with you. And for the people who are causing this, just please, just think before you act, because there's so much situations where you can get in, you basically act on emotion, and this climate, you know what I mean? We're in quarantine. We, again, alone with our thoughts, a lot of shit can go wrong. Stephen A. Smith is on active television promoting porn. So everybody is going through, yes, this is legit. This is what happened.
That's definitely legit, Gene.
Talk about
but yeah, we talk about it, but it's just like everyone's kind of alone, like thinking about the most, like the taboo is no longer taboo. And what has been taboo is bringing up sensitive topics like this. And it's it's crazy to think about, but this is probably the most positive thing that has come of COVID, has come of the quarantine, that while we were alone with our thoughts, we could bring up topics like this, like racism, like cyberbullying, like all these things, because people need to talk about it, and they need to hear it from other people to know that, hey, listen, we bring it up just as much as you are thinking it. And
it's a period of self-reflection.
Exactly.
Where, like I was saying before, it's so easy to get distracted by everything.
Yeah.
And you feel like you don't have enough time. Now all we have is time, and we're sitting here cracking jokes. And everybody cracks jokes to not lessen the severity of a situation, but to get through it, right? But when you really think about it, how long have we allowed ourselves to be distracted to not talk about the things that really do affect us on a daily basis? Like, it's one of those frustrating things where it's like, we all think it. Why is no one doing anything about it? And then we end up in situations like this that hit the extremes, and you're just sitting here like, well, that shouldn't have happened. And we all kind of play a role in that as well, because we could have easily, if we had just had better conversations about it, something like that the chances of that decreasing could have gone down significantly.
Yeah. It goes down to two particular things. It's accountability and empathy. And the world needs a lot of it, especially at this point in time. But that being said, that's Kid Dynamite right there. We got Diamond Cutter. We got Mean Gene. We got the People's Champ. You got myself, the Golden Child. We out.